AM590, The Answer.
Welcome to C-Vine News. You're listening to The Truth with your host, the man with the coolest name in radio, Pimpy.
What is going on out there, peeps? Welcome to C-Vine, We the People on AM590. Today, I have a very special guest. We're going to cover an area about sheriffs that you should be interested in. We have a new and exciting development with C-Vine. It's putting together what we're calling Project Mayberry. You know, the sheriff from the iconic 50s television show of a small town called Mayberry in America. It is an example of how a good sheriff should act, in our opinions. A loved and trusted member of the community who is a strong advocate for protecting citizens from any harm. A sheriff that upholds the rule of law and stands by his oath of office. In other words, a sheriff who follows the Constitution of the United States of America, which is really important. Our sheriffs are elected officials who work for we the people. They are our last line of defense against tyranny, period. We at C-Vine will be shining a light on the activities of various sheriffs across the United States. We the people want to know that our sheriffs in our county are doing their job. We will also be educating the public about the roles of the sheriff versus your local police, teaching what the differences are. At the moment, we are compiling an up-to-date database that will let America know how you can find a local sheriff in your county. Did you know there isn't even a centralized database for this? I was surprised when I went to go onto the internet and try to find a list of sheriffs in all the different counties. We don't have one. So we're going to take care of that. So we at C-Vine are already organizing a team of volunteers for this project. Our guest today, we have Kim Phillips, who is helping us to manage the logistics, keep us up to date on the progress, and tell us what this project is about. Kim, welcome aboard.
Well, thank you. Happy to be here.
I'm very happy to have you here. I'm excited about this project that we're getting involved in. And, you know, I think when we first were talking about this, I was surprised to find out that we don't have a database. And that's kind of shocking because a lot of people aren't aware of this. Our sheriffs are the ultimate law enforcement under the Constitution. They even have the ability to arrest politicians, including the president, in their local areas if the president commits a crime. That's how powerful they are. But Sheriff Mack has been going around brushing sheriffs up on the Constitution. And I'm shocked to hear not only how many people need to be brushed up, but how many of them don't even know their Constitution. And they're swearing an oath to a Constitution they don't know anything about, which, you know, to me is fraud. Can you just let us know a little bit more about Project Mayberry?
Well, sure. My background is I'm in love with organizing data. So when I heard about, hey, this is a great idea, let's do this project, let's come up with a list of all of the sheriffs in the country, to me, that says that should be pretty easy. And just like you, when I started looking around and realizing not only is there not a centralized list yet, not only do the states individually not just have a state-only list, but there were places that we were looking, and I've got a team of about 6 people working together to do this right now. We couldn't even find the name of a sheriff, not in the news, not in the county list, not in a sheriff website, that in some places they appear to be invisible or non-existent.
So if a person wanted, what you're saying is in some locations, they have a sheriff, but if they wanted to pop onto the internet and try to look them up, they don't even have as much as a profile or a website for people to find their local sheriff. Is that right?
That's what we're finding. We're finding that it may say there's a sheriff office, but no name and no contact information. Some are saying, we thought it would be real easy. Just get a sheriff's name, address, phone number, fax number, email maybe. And just easy, those 5 pieces of information are eluding us in many of these cases. It's very surprising.
And I heard that some of them might be a little outdated. Does that sound right?
There's a lot of conflicting information that we found out there. So something has to be outdated because you can't have at least unless there are rules I don't know about, we can't have multiple sheriffs at multiple different offices all at the same time for the same county. So it really has become a project of really wading through this.
You know what's upsetting about this? The sheriff is really important job. It really is. And especially they're the last line of defense against a government of tyranny. So the fact that we have people who are elected sheriffs in different counties, there's a possibility you might not be able to find a way to reach out to your sheriff.
It's very concerning. Just before this, I started checking with a few friends because, to be honest with you, just transparent, I'm not an expert on sheriffs. I came into this from the data side, and so I'm learning as we go, and I'm discovering the many, many things that I don't know, right? So I'm maybe in a familiar position to a lot of our audience, saying I know that there is one, but I've not had a need for one, so I've never tested out to see how to get a hold of one. And one of the things that was pointed out to me by somebody I talked to just a little bit ago is that we sort of collectively, I think in the nation, have an advantage maybe of being able to identify law enforcement with 911.
Right.
So you call 911 and the dispatcher, the expert dispatcher, figures out who is available and sends them. And we don't necessarily know if you're getting a police officer or a sheriff or a state patrol or who responds to that. So we also don't necessarily have on the front of our mind who's responsible for what and what to do if something goes wrong.
What happens if you want to contact your sheriff for something that's non-emergency? Well, you can't call 911 and say, hey, patch me into the sheriff. So this is why the websites are important. You have to be able to know who the sheriff is and how to contact them for anything outside of an emergency, maybe fundraisers or get to know your community, whatever it is you need the sheriff for. But if you can't locate them or you don't know who they are, it makes it a little difficult. You would think that would be one of the priorities, at least in counties, is making sure your citizens know how to reach their government officials when it's necessary. Or they're elected.
Right. I do agree with that. I would like to live someplace where I could find that information. It would be transparent. It would be available. But it's also making me realize that the counties that I'm most frequently in, if you ask me who is the sheriff in that area, I wouldn't be able to produce a name for you. So I haven't done a very good job of knowing who's in my area, who's serving and protecting and representing me. And that means that since those positions are voted in, that suggests I haven't done a very good job of knowing who's being voted in. So that's another thing that through putting a list like this together, it's going to help other people like Kim out there who say, everything's just been going along fairly well. I've been able to coast and I tuned that piece out and I haven't really been very actively involved in either assisting somehow and supporting the sheriff and their responsibilities, being aware of what they're up to, or maybe challenging something that goes wrong and needs to be changed. I'm sure we have a little bit of everything out there right now. So being aware of who, I think, is a first step. So I'm really happy to be working with C-Vine to be able to produce that. Here's a pop quiz. Did you know that there are a few states without sheriffs?
I actually did not know that. The assumption is when the time comes, whenever need be, you could just easily jump on a computer and find your sheriff, and you're saying that's not possible. Now, my assumption is every county must have a sheriff. In this country, we've gotten real comfortable with technology to the point where we're just assuming that everything we need is there for us when we need it. And like you said, we're finding out that that's not the case, at least when it comes to sheriffs. I assume that every county had a sheriff.
There are 3 states that don't use sheriffs, and they do seem to have counties. And so I haven't figured out necessarily what they have in lieu of that. But if I recall correctly, it's Alaska, Hawaii, and Connecticut that don't make use of sheriffs.
Alaska is a little bit surprising. You would think you would have sheriffs. In Hawaii, forget every county, but at least every state have a sheriff, but I guess not. This
well,
is
I'm
really
with you. I had that same assumption. I did. And so now I'm wrong. Well, now here's another pop quiz for you. So how many counties does that leave? How many sheriffs are we chasing down, trying to track down and get contact information for?
Well, that's a hard question to answer, considering we're not even sure what counties do or don't have sheriffs. It makes it really tough.
Well, if we eliminate those 3 states and the count of the ones that should have them, take a stab. Do you have any idea how many counties that leaves?
Oh, good Lord. No, it's got to be in the hundreds, I'm guessing.
Oh, it's a little higher than 100.
No, hundreds.
Plural, higher than plural.
Is that right? Thousands?
Yeah, we're at 3,099, just shy
Oh.
of 3,100 counties in the U.S. that have sheriffs. And as we found, some of the more desert areas may have a sheriff with a number of districts or jurisdictions under him. And I haven't sorted out of how that's divided up. I think it's a little different whether there's under sheriffs or deputies that kind of take the regions, because it's a lot of driving. That's a lot of territory to be responsible for. But just as far as counties, it's 3,100 almost.
So here's my question to you. As we create the database, one of the toughest tasks is going to be maintaining this database. Is that going to be a challenge?
That is a key word. Maintaining is, yep, once you build something, then you're signed on the dotted line to try to keep it working, because if anyone decides that this is a great idea, I'm going to depend on this, then it also needs to be accurate and up to date and working when someone turns to it or it stops being used, right? So right now we're in stage 1, which is build it. And I would say, I don't know that we have any official dates on it, but we're really working hard to get that put together by the end of this year, 2021, so that we can begin the year with that. And we're eager to have it become something that is useful for whatever the next elections are. So that means having some information at some point that recognizes when the quote expiration dates are for those who are in office, when it's coming up for the next votes. There are maybe some opportunities for some other things. It's going to take a good sized team, and the few folks who have said yes to doing this first step are really going to be eager to have some helpers. So if there's anybody else who says, hey, I'm like him, I like doing data, I like checking things, I like researching and pulling those kinds of things together, or just really are interested in this type of information, we're definitely going to be looking for some extra help for that area.
So here's my question. If people want to volunteer and help in this project, how do they get a hold of somebody so they can come aboard?
Well, as of today, we've decided that we're going to set up a Telegram account for Project Mayberry, which is the name of this project that we're working on for coming up with this list. It isn't set up yet, but I would expect it would be by the end of this week. And this is early December. So it should be available, and it's a great way to reach out and touch base, and you can do it fairly anonymously, and it's fairly accessible. Right?
Here's my hope about what you're doing, this project, and with the Telegram, I get them mixed up all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Here's my hope is that you get a team of volunteers. And when I said, you have to be able to keep it updated, that those volunteers, whenever there's a change happening, they reach out and say, hey, in this particular county, we now have Sheriff so-and-so, and the other one is no longer there, but the contact information is the same. You know what I mean? That this team of volunteers is big enough to keep the database updated. Another thing I'd be interested in, and I don't know if this is doable, but we want to make sure that the sheriffs that we get voted into office are those who absolutely support and uphold the Constitution of the United States, not ones that just say they do, but actually show it through actions. We've seen a lot of sheriffs stepping up lately in counties and states everywhere. And they're catching a lot of flack for doing their job. Their oath is to the Constitution. They should not have any allegiance to any political party or any politician for that matter. Their obligation is to the citizens who vote them in office and uphold the Constitution in which they swear the oath to. So hopefully we get enough volunteers. I definitely will be talking about it on my other platforms to see if we get more people aboard and help simplify this just a little bit. But that same group of people, hopefully we'll be able to keep it maintained. That'd be awesome.
Well, I agree with you there too, that if we have, if the dream would be that each county would have citizens spearheading this sort of information and keeping it transparent, and for us to be a location that could do that for others coming and going, and maybe sort of a first stopping place, a first stop shop for this information, that would be fabulous. It's really going to be key. And I should also say too, even though this is in process this month, we're getting all of these things added, but even just the CVine website, cvine.com or c-vine.com,
Right.
is going to refer to this. So watching for the keywords, Project Mayberry will also direct you to where you can get in contact with us if you want to help, or you want to start using the lookups as soon as we've got these we've got the lists uploaded and available, or you find mistakes and you know that there were elections and it's time to make updates and you want to communicate that. This is really important information, and I'm really honored to be part of keeping it, getting this launched and then keeping it updated.
Yeah, we appreciate having you aboard and all the hard work that you're doing. In my opinion, I think it's one of the most important things out there. What I've noticed ever since we've been dealing with the Rona is just how out of touch citizens have been with a lot of political things that are happening with their politicians, with their local elected officials, even small stuff like this, like not knowing in some counties that there's not a way to reach your sheriff as far as we know, or we're seeing now the Mothers of Liberty. Have you heard of them?
No, tell me about that.
They are one of the fastest growing organizations here in America. What they're doing is they are mothers who are a lot more active in the school's curriculum. So they go to these school board meetings and they voice their opinion on the curriculum that's being taught. You've seen it in the news a lot. A lot of them have been upset about the critical race theory. A lot of them have been upset about the fact that their second graders are being taught about homosexuality. It's really upsetting. You should have seen the pictures. They have these books that their second graders are getting with pictures of two males doing a do, and parents are upset about this. So what they're doing is they go to these board meetings and they vote in and vote out people who don't make the proper changes. What's happened is they've been so successful in having these things changed in these schools that the teachers union has now gotten involved and reached out to the Biden administration. And now the Biden administration has now had the Department of Justice go to these board meetings, and they're labeling parents who complain as domestic terrorists. The Biden administration was claiming there's no such list, but a whistleblower just came out and said, yes, there is a list and there are parents on there. America's fighting back. Let's make it a list for the sheriffs who are last line of defense, Mothers of Liberty going to the schools now and watching over the curriculum and what's being taught to their kids. Before we just assumed that the school is there to teach your kids the normal ABCs and readings and all that kind of stuff. But somewhere along the line, they decided to start indoctrinating our children into socialism and homosexuality and critical race theory. Parents are going to sleep at the job. And so now we're starting to see groups of people in different areas start to do something about this. I'm hoping it's not too late that America is finally waking up, but at least we got to start somewhere, making a list of sheriffs so we can keep an eye on them, making sure there are constitutional sheriffs and that the sheriffs themselves know about the Constitution and what to do to uphold it, making sure that, our schools are teaching their children what we want. That's the thing, what we want them to teach our children, not what they want to indoctrinate our children into. So there are movements happening all around the United States in different areas. Finally is what I say, but it's important. And we all kind of been asleep at the job with the assumption that our government is there to protect the people. And we're finding out that's not the case. We'll cover a couple more of those things here as soon as we get back from break. Do you want to add anything else?
I would say that that's absolutely accurate. One of the first steps of doing that is now we have people who are saying, okay, we've been a little bit asleep at the wheel. We've assumed the best and that we can just autopilot. So now that we are aware that we need to get involved, how and where, what do we do? How do we start? And this is one great way to do it. Another way that works with this is something Linda had mentioned earlier when I was speaking to her today, more citizen journalists, more people who are paying close attention to who's doing what and making sure that that is being transparent and available to be found. Like we're stuck with a lack of transparency right now, just on this project of just names and addresses. We need a lot more than that. We'll need to know about actions and words and behaviors and consistency with, are we following what we've said when we took our oath of office and said we would uphold the Constitution? Is that happening? And just exactly what you said earlier, do we know what the Constitution is, what that even means when we take that oath of office? It's a re-education for a few of us.
I think you said the right thing. And I think a lot of citizens had been stuck on autopilot with the assumption that the people who we think were elected into office, we don't know anymore now, are doing the right thing. So the first step is identifying what the problem is and then doing something about it. So anyways, look, we're going to go to break here. This is C-Vine News, We the People on AM590. We'll be right back.
Sheriff Mack is reaching out to all Americans to support their local sheriff by joining the Constitutional Sheriff and Peace Officers Association. This is Linda Forsythe. Sheriff Mack founded this organization to educate the public and support all local sheriffs in our nation. Now, more than ever, our citizens must be able to recognize how a constitutional sheriff acts. Even though all sheriffs take an oath of office to defend our country against enemies, both foreign and domestic, some haven't followed through with that oath. Now is the time to shine a light. Which ones are protecting the people who elected them in their county against illegal constitutional mandates or violent behavior? Your sheriff cannot be told to stand down by any government authority because they were elected by we the people. Citizens and their local sheriff are the last line of defense against tyranny. Sign up for free email updates and alerts at cspoa.org or become a member of the posse for $11 a month. Go to cspoa.org, that's cspoa.org, for Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association.
Hey folks, just a quick reminder that back in 2008 and 9, a lot of people lost all of their retirement savings and their 401ks and IRAs because they did not own gold and silver. Yeah, that's right. Gold and silver protects you from a market crash. So do yourself a favor, protect your retirement by purchasing gold and silver. You can go to moneymetals.com, reach out to them, and they will help you set yourself up to protect you and your family from having to start all over from scratch. If you're a first-time buyer and you spend more than $100, use promo code Pimpy, P-I-M-P-Y, and they will send along with your order a free half ounce of silver. So folks, do yourself a favor, head on over to moneymetals.com and protect you and your family from a market crash, as well as inflation.
AM590, The Answer.
Welcome back to C-Vine News, We the People on AM590. I am here with my guest, Kim Phillips. We are talking about steps that we think citizens need to take in making sure that our government does what they're supposed to do at the state and local levels. And we're talking about putting the database together of sheriffs. We were surprised that a lot of places don't even have the information on how to identify and locate the sheriff there locally. But you did talk about something I want to bring back up, is that a C-Vine News uses volunteers, they're citizen journalists, which is really important. Right now, the trust level of our media is so low. Look what's happening over there on CNN. You got the Cuomo brothers, and what happened? Well, you had Fredo, Chris Cuomo, using his news agency to discredit and track down and harass the people who filed complaints against his brother. And then you have, what is that, MSNBC, is they had somebody that was following the jurors bus during the Kyle Rittenhouse's trial to see where the jurors were being.
MSNBC.
Yeah, and that's dangerous. You know what I mean? Why do you need to follow them? Well, we know they all collaborate together. The media and politicians, the corrupt ones, are bed buddies. So what do? Whatever this agenda is, they really want to intimidate jurors. So that's why they were following them. They could say whatever they want. They had no excuse for it, but that's really dangerous. And they've been getting away with it for a long time. This is also why we need citizen journalists. So if you want to be a citizen journalist and volunteer, come aboard with us, go to c-vine.com. c-vine.com and volunteer to be a citizen journalist. Okay, because we cannot trust our media at all. They are pushing a narrative that's really dangerous. I hope people come aboard. The more, the better. If you want to help out your local community, be a journalist for them. I do want to talk about a couple other headlines. There's a retired Oakland police officer who was murdered while protecting a news crew that was documenting the smash and grabs that have been going on. For those of you who are unaware, over here in California, we've been having these huge mobs of people. They choose a store, they run in there and they smash all the windows up, especially like jewelry stores, and they grab all the jewelries or any other goods. They've ransacked even pharmacies. They've taken the drugs out of there. People need their prescriptions. Over in California right now, you can go into a store and steal up to $950 worth of items and not face any prosecution. There's videos galore on YouTube of people just walking in the store. Nobody can stop them. They don't get charged. So it's really dangerous. If my local pharmacy keeps getting raided, what do you think is going to happen? Well, they're going to close it down. And then where do I go when I need my meds? You see how dangerous this is? And they just allow it. California is terrible for that. But this police officer here, this sheriff, was killed just protecting a news crew. This is how out of control things have gotten over in California.
That is daunting.
Bay Area is really bad. I mean, this one's in Oakland. San Francisco's notorious for it. The state attorney, Chaz, I think his name is Chad. He's actually the son of the founders of the Weathermen Underground. You remember them, the terrorist groups from the 70s? Kim, have you heard of them?
No.
So he is the child of those two. It's the same people that actually groomed Obama, by the way. But anyways, he not prosecuting anybody, and he actually did convention where he was in there speaking to the people, and he was saying it's not their fault and that we should understand and allow it to happen. He just literally told people, let them steal. Stores are closing down everywhere here. We're losing jobs. And like I said, if these pharmacies keep getting raided, they're just going to keep closed. I still think this is all part of that same movement called the Great Reset. People need to look into this. It's unfortunate that this retired police officer was killed. Sheriff David Hathaway, he's in Arizona. He's going to let you know something that's going on. They are starting a COVID registration of who is and who has not had the jab.
There's a state of emergency in Arizona that was declared for monetary purposes, and one of the strings attached is that everybody's information must be shared with the CDC and HHS. And it's right there on the governor's website. His latest executive order, a thing called the Enhanced Surveillance Advisory. He did his COVID state of emergency last March under the Trump administration. He's continued it all the way to the present day. So why did he do that? Well, it's very simple. It's money. In order to get that CARES Act money, the American Rescue Plan money, all this COVID-related money, he had to have a parallel emergency declaration that matched the federal emergency declaration. The strings attached on this are very simple. He has to share all the vaccine information, individualized data with no ability to opt out for anybody who gets the shot in Arizona. The following information must be shared every 24 hours. The individual's name, date of birth, gender, race/ethnicity, residential address, phone number, and vaccine priority group. B, the vaccine product information, lot number, and expiration date. C, the route of administration and administration site on the patient's body. D, the month, day, and year of each immunization. Ducey is clever enough to put in here that you can't opt out, requiring that all of this be shared every 24 hours with CDC and HHS. What I'm reading right here, you can see there's the, wow. I just read that highlighted part. Mm-hmm. There's the governor's signature. Yeah. There's his seal. This is his latest executive order saying that you cannot opt out of that. Now, that is the string attached to the federal money that goes along with his emergency declaration. Christians talk about taking the mark of the beast, and some people say, oh, no, you're wacko. How would they ever do that? How would they ever get everybody's information? You know how it says in the Bible, you won't be able to buy, sell, trade, unless you take the mark of the beast. With this talk of going to a digital currency, how would they be able to track everybody's social credit or what you've done, or if you've done what the government has told you to do? Here's a Republican governor, a hypocrite, that's right, requiring that every 24 hours, all this personally identifiable information with no ability to opt out be shared with CDC and HHS.
That to me is dangerous because I'm one of these people that refuse to get the jab. I have spoken to several doctors from around the world, done interviews with them as well. The ones that are being silenced, by the way, they're not allowed to speak. Their license are being revoked. Their money is being taken. Some of them have been thrown in jail. with no charges. This is what's happening is they're, whatever this agenda is, this is the kind of steps they're taking. Now, I think it is that Governor Gavin Newsom is talking about, once again, registering our guns. So they're making a registry for everybody. What he's talking about, this, the central bank's digital currency, that's coming. They want to do away with cash. And if they do away with cash, then they control our money. If you don't get the jab, guess what? They'll just cut your money off. What do you think about that, Kim?
The ramifications are horrific. On one hand, it could be argued that this could be used for good, but the transparent plans of what's being exposed and how it's going to be used is not lining up with benefiting anyone, really. Yeah. It is sort of ironic, though, that this is being talked about and built and prioritized on the heels of what we just talked about in the first segment, which is how difficult it is even to come up with a list of 3,100 sheriffs in our nation, which are key people.
Well, these people, you would be voluntarily coming in and giving up your info is what it was. I'm going to play something from the Bank of International Settlement. Listen to what he says about the CBDC. It's really disturbing because a lot of people don't know what's going on. What the sheriff's talking about is this gentleman's name. His name is Augustine. He is over there from the Bank of International Settlement. They're in charge of controlling all of the digital currency. Listen to what this man says.
All our analysis on CBDC, in particular for the use of general use, we tend to establish the equivalence with cash. And there is a huge difference there. For example, in cash, we don't know, for example, who's using a $100 bill today. We don't know who is using a 1,000 peso bill today. A key difference with the CBDC is that central bank will have absolute control on the rules and regulations that will determine the use of that expression of central bank liability. And also, we will have the technology to enforce that.
He's saying that the central banks are going to create the policies and regulations on what you can do with your money. See, right now with cash, you could do whatever you want and they have no way of monitoring it. But through the digital currency, they'll be able to keep track of everything that everybody does. But he also, so when he says the bank's liability, people don't know what that is. You deposit money into the bank, you become the bank's liability because they owe you that money. So I'll play it one more time, just a little bit, but listen what he's saying. We will be setting the procedures and we have the technology to enforce them. So if you don't do what your government says, and it's not going to be just for, jab, it's going to be for everything. China, we know if you speak out against the government, they punish you, you get a credit score and you could lose money. They can take your money or stop you from having access to your money if you don't do what the government says. This is why I always encourage people to buy gold and silver. You need something out of the system to protect yourself. But one more quick time, just listen to how he words it.
We tend to establish the equivalence with cash, and there is a huge difference there. For example, in cash, we don't know, for example, who's using a $100 bill today. We don't know who is using a 1,000 peso bill today.
See, so right now what they're saying is with cash, we have no way of knowing what people are doing with their money.
A key difference with the CBDC is that central bank will have absolute control.
The central banks will have absolute control of the digital currency.
On the rules and regulations that will determine the use of that expression of central bank liability.
See what he's saying? They will have total control of that central bank's liability. They have total control of the money.
And also, we will have the technology to enforce that.
So if you don't do what they say, they have the technology to keep you from getting your money. They're going to have a registry of people that have gotten the jab. And if you don't get it, they'll control your money and they'll force you to do it. The sheriff was bringing this back into the Bible, saying the Bible talks about you won't be able to get food. You won't be able to. They're already saying it. In Australia right now, it's really bad. It is really bad. The news came out and just said point blank, if you don't go get the jab and you don't have a way to prove it, you can't go to work, you can't go to school, you can't go buy food. So they're already the testing grounds for this bigger movement. The people are rising up everywhere around the world right now to fight this situation. But if you don't know who the good guys are versus the bad guys, like we're doing now, starting with the sheriffs, who's our first line of defense against a government of tyranny, which is really important that we pay attention to who we vote in office. This is what we have to look forward to. So the sheriff exposed and Doug Ducey's wanting a registry of people that have and have not gotten a jab, and him bringing in the CBDC, which is central bank digital currency. This is why I played that part, so you could see what their intentions are. What are your thoughts on that?
I've heard it spun that in order to protect us from terrorist activity and terrorist money movement, that there are ways to track all the dollars. Obviously, a digital currency would be a very easy way to do that because nothing gets deleted, right? Coming from the data side of things, it doesn't.
Right.
It doesn't need to be. We've got way too much storage space, storage capacity available. We could keep it all. So that just harkens back to the Patriot Act all those years ago when we had something that was terrible and said, gee, we can protect the country if we can spy on people to make sure that you're not being terroristic.
Well, that goes into, I think it was Abraham Lincoln that said that, or was it Jefferson, one of the two, that said, when you start sacrificing your rights for protection is when you lose both. So you have to ask yourself,
well said.
Yeah, you have to ask yourself, do you really trust your government to have this type of power? I don't. Yeah, we already see the kinds of abuses that we see in different areas. I mean, people can say what they want about this election, but, if it's questionable, and if you even mention it, you see how they attack you, and they use the media to attack you. I don't trust the government to have this type of power, nor should the government have this type of power. Their jobs specifically are under the Constitution to protect the rights of the people, not violate them. And that's exactly what they're doing. Seeing a much more aggressive group of politicians that are coming in, and they'll lie. They'll say the Constitution, it's racist. That's their go-to card on everything, is the race card. Math is racist. They want you to be dumbed down. We don't need these exams because they're racist. Don't read these books because they're racist. The filibuster is Jim Crow 2.0. It's racist. They keep doing that over and over, trying to condition the public into surrendering a lot more of our rights and giving into this movement under the umbrella of we'll be a much safer utopia. I don't think so. I don't trust my government at all.
Well, right. And so for those who are feeling the same way and really object to the direction that this is heading, we just kind of get back to what kind of action steps can you take? One is building these kinds of lists. It doesn't have to just be about sheriffs, but it is transparent. So we're working on sheriffs now, and there will be other ones that will be in the future, I would imagine, other pieces of information that we need. The next one that would be helpful would be getting involved in your local community, and more and more people are reporting that that's happening, whether it's school boards or village boards or fire boards or these places that are having meetings that are making decisions on our behalf, showing up, letting your voice be heard, holding accountability just by making recordings, writing things down, sharing it in publicity, whether you have your own blog or you are
citizen journalist with C-Vine.
It's citizen journalist with C-Vine. And this one of the visions, or part of, I should say, the vision of Project Mayberry is not only just to have a list, but then to be able to have one kind of collective area where what's happening with the sheriffs in the news can be found there. It can be referenced there. Maybe scorecards. I know that one of my friends in Wisconsin, who is part of it's Patriots United, is what the organization that's up there. She was pointing out that having an ability to track who's doing what and making what kinds of decisions and aligning with what, that really helps people of all perspectives, whether or not you're seeing exactly the way that I'm seeing and what I like and what I don't like. It's really tough to tell who's who in the zoo unless you have some sort of window into that. And this has that potential really with Project Mayberry. It really can help us to get involved.
I think like we were talking about how most of us are on cruise control, not just with what's going on and being taught at our schools, but also what's going on with what our politicians are doing and the types of executive orders that they're passing. I mean, Doug Ducey, I mean, the name of that executive order, what's it say, to surveillance the people? What a choice of words. You could see where they're going with this. So it's not just Democrats, it's both sides of the political party, because I hear people go, well, the Democrats. And I go, no, it's not. We have both political parties are two sides of the same evil coin. That's why it's really important to pay attention to what's going on. But then you get those group of people going, what do you mean? This last time we voted and look what happened. I get that, but you can't just sit back and go, man, look what they did to us and do nothing about it. Identifying what the problem is, doing what it takes to get us to the next step to fix this problem. You know, my thing was you should force everybody to do mandatory physical audits in every county to find out what really happened in the event on November the 3rd. Do a full audit so the American people can feel confident that our system is working the way we want it to. That's for sure. Listen,
And
Kim,
just as a shout out, we have a
But-
sheriff in Racine County, Wisconsin, who has done just exactly what you're describing, and he's been
Yes.
calling for an audit, and
Yeah.
he is taking on task the Wisconsin Election Commission, which is a big deal. But one sheriff made a move and was brave and courageous, and we know that there are many more around the U.S. who will follow suit, and if they know we're behind them. So that's part of our goal for sure.
yeah, and when that first step is first being able to get a list of sheriffs and keep an eye on them, and then people put the pressure on them to do just that. Anyways, listen, Kim, I want to take this time to say thank you so much for coming aboard and speaking with us and letting us know what's going on. I appreciate all that you do. I know that's a crazy task, and I hope everything goes smooth and we get some volunteers out there to come on in, c-vine.com. Looking for both volunteer citizen journalists as well as helping with this database to put together. So I want to thank you again for coming aboard. And I want to say,
Happy to be here.
say to everybody out there, thank you and have a great day. And we'll see you later. This is C-Vine News signing out.
What is C-Vine anyway? The acronym C-Vine stands for Community Voices, Investigations, News, and Education. C-Vine is a grassroots collection of people from all walks of life, skills, and talents, banding together to heal our community. As a group of law enforcement, retired military, accountants, teachers, doctors, nurses, clergy, stay-at-home moms, or the local construction worker, C-Vine donates their time where needed. It is we the people who built America. From generations of blood, sweat, and tears, C-Vine creates teams to tackle work where it is needed. All volunteers have their own businesses or personal lives, but donate their time in an area they have experience and skills. The news portion of C-Vine investigates existing news stories by licensed investigators. C-Vine journalists report the news live on social media. C-Vine also has commentary and analysis recorded on AM radio. Watch for news teams now being formed in the education sector called Project Mayberry, coming very soon. Visit the cvine.com website, become a member, and sign up for C-Vine's newsletter. That's c-vine.com, c-vine.com.